Israel News Today: a power generator at a major Gaza hospital fails overnight during a Lebanon-Israel armed conflict. Missiles were exchanged overnight between Israel and Lebanon, according to a telegram update from the Israel Defense Forces. The IDF has reported that Lebanon has fired a surface-to-air missile at an Israeli drone. In response, the IDF has taken action against the group responsible for launching the projectile, referring to them as a terrorist cell. Gaza's Ministry of Health has informed NBC News that its primary power generator has ceased functioning, endangering the lives of numerous individuals. According to Doctors Without Borders, the Gaza Strip is currently facing a significant challenge with over 20,000 injured individuals who have limited access to health care. Foreign passport holders are now evacuating Gaza through the Rafah border, crossing into Egypt, following the recent attack by Palestinian militant group Hamas on Israel. The evacuations have been implemented following an agreement reached by the U.S., Hamas, Israel, and Egypt. According to a person familiar with the discussions, this deal permits the departure of up to 500 foreign and dual nationals from the region each day. According to U.S. President Joe Biden, it is necessary to implement a humanitarian pause in the conflict in order to facilitate the safe evacuation of individuals referred to as prisoners. He provided his comments in response to a protester who interrupted him at a fundraiser, urging for a ceasefire. In the coming days, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is scheduled to visit Tel Aviv, Israel, and Amman, Jordan. The Israeli military attempted to evacuate foreign nationals from the Gaza Strip, but their efforts were hindered by Hamas. Israel's military has reported that it made two separate attempts to evacuate international civilians from the Gaza Strip during its conflict with Hamas. However, the Palestinian militant group hindered the operation, preventing it from being carried out. "We have made two previous attempts, one during the war's early stages and another a week later, to evacuate international citizens from the Gaza Strip, with a specific focus on Americans." According to Israel Defense Forces spokesperson Jonathan Conricus, Hamas was responsible for stopping both attempts. Conricus mentioned in a TV interview with Newsmax that Hamas was essentially holding these civilians hostage. CNBC was unable to confirm the assertion. The Rafah crossing, which connects the Gaza enclosure to Egypt, is the sole passageway that is not under Israeli control. On Wednesday, foreign nationals were finally allowed to leave the Gaza Strip and enter Egypt. This significant development came as a result of a deal between Israel, Egypt, and Hamas, with the assistance of Qatar and the United States. Egypt's role in the post-Hamas era is crucial, as we will need to collectively address the well-being of the remaining civilians in Gaza, Conricus acknowledged. The main power generator at the Indonesian hospital has ceased functioning. The Ministry of Health in Gaza informed NBC News that the primary power generator at the Indonesian hospital in the territory has ceased functioning, endangering the lives of hundreds. The report is a response to a warning from a Palestinian health ministry official who stated that the Al-Shifa Medical Complex and Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza were on the verge of running out of generator fuel within a few hours. According to a spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces, the Jabalia refugee camp in the northern Gaza Strip, which was recently targeted by Israel, is considered a stronghold of Hamas. Consider the areas with significant terrorist activity, where terrorists have had ample time to establish themselves among the local population. One such area is Jabalia, stated IDF spokesperson Jonathan Conricus. Israel has acknowledged carrying out an airstrike on the Jabalia refugee site, resulting in a significant number of casualties, according to a local hospital. The Israeli military has raised doubts about the figures, claiming that they originate from Hamas-run facilities without providing their own assessment of the death toll. Israel justifies the operation at the Jabalia refugee camp as a targeted strike against Ibrahim Biari, a senior Hamas commander, who the IDF claims was killed in the attack. CNBC was unable to verify the figures and developments on the ground through independent means. Israel and Lebanon engaged in a military confrontation overnight. The Israeli military reported that it was involved in a confrontation with Lebanese missiles during the night, as stated by the Israel Defense Forces on Telegram. The IDF reported that Lebanon fired a surface-to-air missile at an Israeli drone, prompting the IDF to respond to the group responsible for the attack. The IDF has reported that additional Lebanese launches have been detected in the Har Dov and Mount Hermon regions, with the projectiles landing in unpopulated areas. Israel has been engaged in a series of military exchanges with Hezbollah, a Lebanese militant group backed by Iran, ever since the conflict with Palestinian militants Hamas began. Hezbollah has consistently emphasized their support for the Palestinian people. Israel claims that Tehran is behind a series of attacks on its territory, carried out by proxy groups such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and Yemeni Houthi. Iran has consistently refuted any involvement in the Hamas terror attacks that occurred on October 7. Reporters Without Borders has filed a war crimes complaint regarding the tragic deaths of journalists in Gaza. Reporters Without Borders has submitted a complaint to the International Criminal Court regarding the journalists who lost their lives during the Israel-Hamas conflict. The organization stated that its complaint pertains to 8 Palestinian journalists and 1 Israeli journalist. RSF described the deaths of Palestinian journalists in Gaza as the result of an indiscriminate attack. Despite the Israeli authorities' claims that these journalists were targeted as part of attacks on legitimate military targets, the organization argues that the resulting harm to civilians was clearly excessive and disproportionate. According to the organization, these actions can be classified as war crimes. RSF reported that the Israeli journalist was killed on October 7 while covering an attack by Palestinian militant group Hamas on his kibbutz. The statement indicated that his death was considered a deliberate act of killing a person who is protected by the Geneva Conventions, which is classified as a war crime. The organization also called on the ICC to thoroughly investigate the deaths of all journalists who have tragically lost their lives since the war began. It is worth noting that this is the organization's 3rd formal complaint regarding war crimes against Palestinian journalists in Gaza since 2018. According to Médecins Sans Frontières, there are still 20,000 individuals in the Gaza Strip who are injured. According to Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, the ongoing bombardment and siege on the Gaza Strip has left over 20,000 people injured with limited access to health care. MSF is calling for a ceasefire and expressing readiness to send a new team of international members to support the local medical response in the Strip. Additionally, MSF's Palestinian staff are continuing their work within the Gaza territories. Approximately 2 million Palestinians remain confined in the Gaza Strip amidst ongoing shelling, which includes 300 Palestinian MSF staff and their families, stated the report. In a separate video address on Wednesday, MSF International President Dr. Christos Christou emphasized the limited impact that medical staff can have in addressing the immense needs. Our teams in Gaza are feeling extremely fatigued and fearful. He emphasized the importance of providing Gaza with an immediate ceasefire to ensure the delivery of essential medicines and access to healthcare. The Gaza healthcare system has been severely impacted by a lack of fuel and electricity supplies since the beginning of the siege in early October, as well as a scarcity of medical resources. Several nations have declared plans to evacuate their citizens from Gaza. Several nations have declared the evacuation of their citizens from Gaza, with the first group being transported to Egypt via the Rafah crossing. According to Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, a total of 20 Australians, as well as 3 individuals who were either permanent residents or immediate family members of a citizen, were successfully evacuated on Wednesday through the crossing. According to Australian Assistant Foreign Minister Tim Watts, there are still 65 citizens, residents, and close relatives who have not been evacuated. We are actively advocating for their prompt passage across the Rafah crossing, Watts stated. The Bulgarian government has also reported that 36 Bulgarian citizens and their family members have safely departed from Gaza. The Bulgarian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Maria Gabriel, highlighted the challenging and rapidly changing circumstances surrounding the evacuation through the Rafah crossing. She emphasized that all Bulgarian nationals in the initial group permitted to leave the Gaza Strip were in a favorable state. On Wednesday, France, the UK, and the US shared news about the successful evacuation of their citizens from Gaza via the Rafah crossing. Blinken is scheduled to visit Tel Aviv and Amman. In the coming days, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will be visiting Tel Aviv, Israel, and Amman, Jordan.